Here's a picture of Cyrus I. Scofield, taken from the front of an excellent book called The Incredible Scofield and His Book, written by Joseph Canfield. Mr. Canfield, about 10 or 15 years ago, set out to find out who Cyrus Scofield was, the author of the famous Scofield Study Bible, and what connection Scofield's life might have with what was in the Bible. And he found an amazing thing. He found that the Scofield Study Bible basically calls for the support of Israel in the Middle East, and it is a document that actually seeks to and calls for war. Now, we need to talk a little bit about the nature of this man who is so famous in American history that his name is on literally millions of Bibles, some of you may have them, called the Scofield Study Bible, or Scofield Reference Bible, I should say. Cyrus Scofield was basically a criminal. He was a young Civil War veteran who enlisted on the side of the South, even though he was from Michigan. After a little while, in hearing about conflict, he wasn't in conflict, but after a little while he decided he'd made a mistake, and he sought to get out, and the the Confederacy let him out of the military because he admitted that he'd falsified his age and he was underage. A few years later, he ended up in St. Louis, Missouri, where he declared himself to be a lawyer. He put a shingle on his door saying that he was a lawyer. He had no training to be a lawyer, but he went on and acted as one. And Cyrus Scofield went on from there to follow a life of what virtually was crime. He became a professional forger. He placed the names of other people on documents and sold the documents for his own gain. One of the people whose signatures he forged was his mother-in-law. He sold her property and fleeced her out of most of her wealth. He also deserted her daughter with her 2 children, leaving her to take care of it herself in the Old West. Scofield was eventually caught, accused of forgery, charged, convicted, and sent to the state prison in Kansas, where he spent, I believe, 2 years in prison. Upon being released, Scofield took up a new profession, preaching the gospel. Scofield became the leader of a small church in Texas. He went where he wasn't known, and he started a church in Fort Worth, Texas, and it was successful. He was an artful talker, very, very persuasive, and he soon attracted a following in his little church. And before very long, something very unusual happened, though. Scofield decided that he wanted to write a Bible. And without portfolio, without history, without any training, without any college, Scofield managed to get his church to give him a leave of absence with pay. They agreed to pay him $1,500 a year. And Scofield went off to Switzerland, where he lived in Lake Geneva. And for the next 4 years, with no other means of support, he wrote what turned out to be the Scofield Reference Bible that was published in 1908. What was the Scofield Reference Bible? The Scofield Reference Bible was a standard King James version of the Old Testament and New Testament that had its pages torn out and notes attached to them, footnotes written on yellow pads, Scofield told us in his biography. He assembled a huge file of yellow notes about the Scofield Bible, interpreting the King James Version of the Bible, saying what it was supposed to mean to us. And with that, he went forward to have the Bible published. Now, I should tell you that Scofield did not invent this idea. A Scotchman named John Nelson Darby, who started an organization called Plymouth Brethren, came to the United States, also financed mysteriously, without any real means of support, without any success in his background. But Darby came to the United States and began touring the country selling his concept of Darbyism, which in effect called for a Armageddon, the same Armageddon that Dr. Curley was talking about at the outset of this lecture. The Armageddon, where there would be a terrible war in Israel. And there were a number of other factors in this idea that Scofield picked up on, and he became a follower of John Nelson Darby, and he essentially plagiarized, I suppose, or borrowed much of what Darby had said, and this was what went into the footnotes of the study Bible that became known as the Scofield Study Bible. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Before we go further, it's going to come naturally to most of us to wonder where this man got, where he found the financial support to take on such a monumental task as taking 4 years of his life off to live in a very posh, wealthy European place and to do nothing other than doodle on yellow pads. It will also make us wonder how it is that this man could possibly get into Oxford University Press, the organization that eventually published the Oxford Reference Bible. And this is really a peculiarity because Oxford University Press was Anglophile and they had Americophobia. There had never been a writer of American descent or American upbringing who had been published by Oxford University Press. Oxford Press was very close to the English crown, and it was thought to be very close to Lord Rothschild, who, of course, was a powerful source in the new Zionist movement. But Oxford University Press was anything but pro-American, and it was anything but religious. It had never published a religious book, not even for some prominent religious theologians in England who were associated with Oxford University. Oxford Press would not touch a Bible. It would not touch a religious book. But it did publish Cyrus Scofield's Reference Bible off of his yellow notepads. Now, it should be most clear to most people that somehow Scofield had to have an introduction. He could not have simply found his way into Oxford Press, nor could he have found his way through this. And evidence is very strong that indicates that he did have support and that he was helped along the way by a number of people.